Hey everybody, we are going to learn how to do a database today from the World Bank. It's one of the most powerful databases in the world, put out by the World Bank. And uh, we're going to kind of take you through this so that you can build a database. And when you do your own papers, this may be a useful place for you to look because once you get the hang of it, um, it's pretty straightforward, but I thought I'd record it rather than giving you text instructions because it's a little tricky to try to describe these places, but I think once you see it, you will. So I will provide this link to DataBank, and basically what this is it has a ton of information on all sorts of countries around the world, every single country around the world, everything from the economy to social characteristics, demographic characteristics, and some of the countries have better data than others. You can imagine some of the countries that are lower income don't have all the data that a wealthy country might have just because they don't have the money for it to collect all those services. But I thought what we'd do, since one of my areas of expertise is in sub-Saharan Africa. I've written a book on Zimbabwe and also been to Ghana several times, been to Zimbabwe about 4 times. I'd show you how we could build a simple regression model, basically coming from building a data set here. And that's one of the things I want you to be doing for this coming week. I'm going to be not holding my live class this week, but I will be able to answer emails just because I'm going to be out of town, so I'm not available to do this remotely in a live situation, but I thought anyway I would give you this video. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look and we want to see that there are different areas that we're going to go through. We're going to pick our excuse me, we're going to pick our database. We actually already have done that, so you're not going to have to worry about that. It's World Development Indicators. Just so that you can see, the World Bank has different databases available. Poverty and equity, doing business. Doing business is actually a really good one. It's about the ease of doing business in any given country, and they have all these different variables. I've used that quite a bit. You can see they have all these different databases here, and we are using the World Development Indicator. So we're going to close that back up. We've already selected it there. And now we're going to go to the country. And the countries, what you can do is you can really pick any country you want. You know, they have all 180 plus countries in the world. You can also study by aggregate, so you could just study like the Arab world, sub-Saharan Africa. By the way, the continent of Africa, typically when we say Africa, we tend to mean sub-Saharan Africa, because countries like, say, Libya and Morocco are on the continent of Africa, but they tend to get lumped into the Arab world, and my guess is they're there. So we're not going to study today aggregates. We're going to actually look at individual countries. And so this little piece right here, that's their filter. It looks like a little funnel. You want to click on that. And since we're in countries, we're now going to click on sub-Saharan Africa. Okay. And then we're going to close that back up. And so what we've got now is, if you look here, we've got only countries in sub-Saharan Africa, right? Zimbabwe should be in there. Seychelles. Seychelles is a nice little island. Well, I can't do this with one hand and do all of them, but we've got all the countries of sub-Saharan Africa. I think there's about 54 of them. We are going to select all of them. All right. So we've done that. And there's a way to do that right there. See, these icons, it'd be nice if they had some language above it, because I remember there's a way to do it, but it's that little checkbox, and then you can see all of them are in blue. Okay, so now we are going to come over here and we are going to close that little one up. Okay, and now we're going to open up the next one, which is series. And so what we have here, you know how in the past what we've done with our we have looked at different variables, and Right now we have countries, so we have like 54 countries in our data set, and that's going to be the equivalent of our, like before we did bus riders, individual 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are countries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got kind of like running down the first column are countries. Those are the individual units of observations. And then we're going to pick some variables that we're interested in. So one of the things is I'm interested in GDP, right? That's just me. I'm interested in what makes countries grow, what makes countries thrive. And GDP, gross domestic product, is just kind of your basic one. So we're going to find there are a bunch of different options when I did GDP up here in the search box. So I'm going to scroll up here. There are quite a lot of them. And one thing we want to do is we want to make sure we have a GDP that's adjusted for inflation. So you can see here, here's one. Constant 2017 dollars international per capita, that's per person. There's another one in 2010 dollars. Sometimes we like to bring the, so this one doesn't have the PPP. In other words, it doesn't adjust for buying power. Like in China, or even in sub-Saharan Africa, if you bring $50 over there, you can live pretty large because your money goes pretty far. When you have PPP, that means purchasing power parity. PPP, that adjusts for that cost of living. Now this one here doesn't do that. It just puts everything in dollars. You could also look at differences in growth rates, GDP growth, and what drives that. So why don't we do growth rate? So we'll pick that as our dependent or y variable. All right. And then I have some other ideas. So I'm going to go over here to M, because these are all the variable starting names, starting initials. So I thought, well, what might be a driver for GDP? Well, one of them might be like military expenditures. So that might be like our first X variable. There are some of these countries that spend a huge amount of money on the military, and the military really isn't, it really doesn't do much. I mean, tanks blow up things, missiles blow up things. They don't really grow economies except for when you're buying them. You employ people when you buy them, but most of these military expenditures, you're importing missiles, so you're not really adding much to the economy. So kind of like one thing I'm interested in is if you have economies that spend a lot on the military, maybe that hurts economic growth. That's not really great for it. Just because we're in the ABS, let's pick manufacturing. See what their manufacturing is as a percent of GDP. Not too much interest over there. Let's go over to S, and let's look at stocks traded. Because stocks traded, some of these countries don't even have functioning stock markets. So a functioning stock market is kind of an indication of the health of an economy. And so why don't we pick that one as well? And let's see, what did I have? I had maybe one more for the purpose of this exercise that you guys are going to do. Hope my hand is steady. I was trying to do a zoom, but I have not yet figured out how to. Oh, here's one, oil rents. Now, what's my idea with oil rents? Well, oil rents, there's something called the curse of oil. And what happens is that some of these countries have a lot of oil, a lot of natural resources, and they can drill. But the problem is they never learn how to develop for themselves. It's kind of like, like a kid who inherits a lot of money and never learns how to work. Some of these countries have tremendous oil reserves, and they don't even refine the oil. They just export it coming right out of the ground. And so you have these companies like BP and Shell and so forth, and they just kind of come into the country. They bring their own people, and a lot of the leaders get really rich, but the people there don't get very much of the benefits. So that's another interest that I have is for this particular little exercise and so there's all these variables under all these different headings, And you can also, you can filter there. You could look at different categories in all these. So if you don't want to go through every single variable, they have education, they have environment, fresh water, land use. You just have a tremendous amount of variables, health access. So when you're doing your papers, this is a great resource for you to use, because you're going to develop a paper around a country. So this is kind of our first dip into that. Okay, so we've gotten our series, we've gotten our countries, we've gotten our database, and the last thing is time. So we have all these different years, and so one of the things to think about is that the further back in time, the worse the data, and actually the closer in time, like if we go to 2020, that data is not going to be filled in yet. Sometimes there's lags as much as 3 to 4 years. So let's take kind of a safe bet. Let's go to 2016. That's just 4 years away, and things aren't going to change that much in 4 years for most countries. So we're going to go back and close up time again. Okay. And then we're going to come over here, and it says apply changes. Okay. So what you can see now is it has all the countries, but it has them one by one. Okay. So we could go to like Burundi, right? And it's got the data on GDP growth, military expenditures, manufacturing, and you can see some of it's not all there, so we have to scroll down. You see it. Now, one thing you can see is this does not have any information on stocks. Okay, so that's just, like I said, some of the countries don't have a good stock market. They don't have any stock market. Let's pick a richer country. Ethiopia should have a stock market. Let me see. No, they don't have one either. I thought they would be wealthy enough. Now, South Africa should definitely have a stock market. And maybe this wasn't the greatest variable. I don't know that much about stock markets. I know Zimbabwe has a small one. So yeah, they definitely have a stock market there, a big one. So maybe, that's part of the interest of doing something like this is there's not always a, you don't always know, you don't know what you're doing. That's part of the fun of it, is what you're going to find out. But to do a regression, this is not the form, right? We need to get this into a spreadsheet. So we're going to go over here to download options. We're going to pick Excel. Okay, you can see over here, it's come down. We're going to open that up. And that's come up on my big screen. Okay. We got to pick enable editing. So you can see each country has a series of different variables, and we're going to stop there and get to point 2 when we talk about adjusting these variables. Okay.